Should I be starting? Am I supposed to start? Oh, good. Sorry, I was waiting. Okay, hey everybody. Good to see all of you. My name is Rachel. I'm a product manager at Twilio, and super excited to talk to you today about building omnichannel AI agents with Twilio and Foundry. All right, let's go. There we go. Okay, so why are we all here? What are we all talking about? As we all know, global AI spend has surged. So according to Gartner, 44% year over year. We've all seen it. We've all been asked, how are we using AI in our everyday workflows? How are we building AI products for our customers? But the interesting thing is that while this spend has surged, we're still struggling to find value from AI. So you can see 56% of leaders say they're getting nothing out of AI. Only 6% of brands improved their CX scores in 2025. So there's this huge increase in monetary investment, but there isn't really the results yet, right? Even companies are saying they're not finding value, and then the end consumers who we're building these experiences for, we're not seeing them enjoying those experiences that they're having with businesses. So why? What is the challenge? So what we've seen at Twilio is that there are a few challenges, but the first being memory loss. So having a conversation with a customer, an agent, whether that's virtual or a human agent, or interacting with a business digitally, there's amnesia, right? It doesn't remember that you had an email last week, that you had a phone call this week, or that you searched its website 3 weeks ago. So the traditional customer experience actually suffers from this amnesia across channels, and that leads to a very disjointed end customer experience. I'm sure everyone here has had a terrible customer support experience where they're talking to someone, maybe they get transferred and they're repeating the same thing over and over again, or they call, they get disconnected, or you call and that you know that your flight is delayed and the agent's like, hey, what do you need help with? And you're like, my flight's delayed. You just texted me that my flight was delayed. Why don't you know that my flight's delayed? So it's leading to disjointed experience, and then also it's really hard. I don't know how many people in the room have tried to build a virtual agent they've actually put in front of customers. Anybody? Maybe? So it's actually kind of complex to actually deploy and scale an AI agent that's omni-channel, has memory, has the right knowledge, has the right data. It isn't really that simple to do. So these are the challenges that we see. And given these challenges, this is why we have launched really like our Microsoft Foundry and what we call Twilio Agent Connect native integration. And I'm going to show you an actual demo of this today. But really, the reason that we decided to build this was because of those challenges that you just saw, and trying to get to production with lower engineering effort. So on the Foundry side, they have the ability to build and optimize and govern AI agents out of the box with a vast selection of models you can choose. And on the Twilio side, we handle the real-time conversation management, persistent memory, and the multi-channel orchestration with a new product that we launched a couple weeks ago called Twilio Agent Connect. And the reason that we're bringing these things together is really to move from conception to production with less engineering effort and to have a real production-ready agent. So what is this? Sorry, this is, why did we actually do this? There are two best-in-class platforms, and between them, we're trying to create one agent. So they're not overlapping platforms, they're really complementary. So Twilio on the left handles every single channel with every single region with shared customer memory across them. And then with Foundry, you get the intelligence, the voice live API, the foundational models, the agent framework SDK, and with Twilio Agent Connect, this really bridges them. So it's one open source SDK with two connectors, one to Twilio and one to Foundry, to create one agent across all your channels. All right, so let's talk about how you actually can deploy this. So we first went out the gate with container apps. So container apps gives you full control over your agent runtime. It's on the production-grade Azure infrastructure, and you have the session persistence, Cosmos DB connection, et cetera. So you can kind of see how this works from an architectural perspective on the right here, where you have your Twilio channels on the left, connecting with WebSockets to your container apps. You connect to Azure Cosmos DB for your state management, and it goes to Foundry and calls your models. So this is kind of how we first launched this. But what we saw was that, or what we learned was that, traditional compute with container apps wasn't actually built for agents. Traditional compute was designed for stateless web services and APIs where multiple users can share the same instance. But agents need long-lived, stateful per-user session. So imagine a scenario where you have customer A and customer B calling the same agent. That agent's writing files, it's executing code, it's accessing credentials. You have a security and isolation issue that you need to solve, right? You don't want customer A to somehow access customer B's information. So that's why Microsoft actually invested in hosted agents, as the new compute primitive for this exact pattern. And there's 6 key benefits that you can see on the screen here. So every session gets its own dedicated sandbox. Cold starts are predictable. You can scale to 0 and pay nothing while your agent's not doing anything. You have the state persistence. You have a unique agent identity. And then you also get out-of-the-box observability, evaluations, like policies. And I'll show you some of that today in the demo as well. And so it's really not hard now to get an agent. The hard part is actually making it enterprise ready. So because Microsoft actually launched hosted agents and went into public preview with WebSocket support and the Invocations API recently, we were able to switch our deployment option to hosted agents. So what is our deployment now? Oh, this is not changing. What does our deployment now look like? We now have a deployment option with hosted agents. We still have our container app option, but this is a much better solution. It's fully serverless, minimal operation burden, and you get everything that I mentioned on the previous slide with hosted agents with a native WebSocket integration. So I don't know if you remember the last architecture, but this one is very simplified, right? Twilio handles the voice, SMS, and chat. Events flow over HTTP into the API management gateway on the top, which validates the Twilio signature, it adds auth, and it maps each Twilio conversation ID to a hosted agent session ID, giving every conversation its own dedicated sandbox. And from there, it routes into the hosted agent sandbox where your agent logic runs, and it connects to Microsoft Azure Foundry for your model inference. Fully serverless, no compute, no scaling, no idle costs. This is really a much better solution when it comes to deploying agents. And the one thing I will note is you'll see on the bottom there's like HTTP for the omnichannel events and then the WebSocket hosting. So that's where the low latency WebSocket hosting, that's native for our voice channels, how we make the connection for voice specifically. So before we go into the demo, what actually is TAC? So why do you need this other thing in between your Twilio channels and your hosted agents? Really what TAC is, it's a connector. And so there's 2 main components. There's the agent framework connector, which you see on the top right, which routes your Twilio events across voice and messaging directly into the Microsoft Agent Framework. It also handles that session persistence with CosmoDB and the contextual memory injection. And then we also have the Voice Live connector, which provides the direct integration with Foundry Voice Live. So that does the streaming inference over WebSockets, and it makes it really fast. So you'll hear during the demo today, hopefully, if the sound works well, how quickly the voice call works and how quickly it responds. So that's kind of everything I had to show you on slides. And so I'm going to hopefully spend the rest of this time going over a live demo. All right. All right, this is going to be a little tough, but let me just get this going. Okay. So let me show you how this actually works. I'm going to first pop up our, actually I can just look right here. I'm first going to pop up, this is our open source repo. So it's called Twilio Agent Connect Microsoft. And you can definitely take a look at this. I'm going to have a QR code and also the link at the end of the presentation, so don't feel the need to write this down. So what I've really been talking about today, and you can take a look here, we have readmes and everything. Within our deploy, we have this new agent framework hosted agents deploy option. And within here, I've been talking about today the agent framework connector. So if I go to the agent file, you can see the TAC hosted agents app class. This is what's actually going to connect the hosted agent requests originating from Twilio into TAC. And this is installable within your own Python code through pip. So this is really like the secret sauce behind all of this. And to deploy this, you can see it in the README. All I did was an azd-up command. And you can see that here. In the azd-up command, it provisions the API management instance and a hosted agent with TAC running directly inside of it. So that's kind of like the secret sauce of how all this works. I'm not going to run the _AZDEP command now because it takes 5 or 10 minutes. We'd all just sit here silently watching it. But I'm going to show you what actually was deployed. So if I go back to my hosted agents, here was this, I'm doing an airline demo today. So I deployed this actually last week. I'm going to go to version 1. And that all happened without me having to do anything besides obviously give my API key and my hosted agent's URL. And so I was able to deploy this agent. And what's really cool is that by doing that, out of the box, I get access to all the things that exist in hosted agents. So you have your traces, you have your monitor, you have your evals, you also have a playground. I also, like I mentioned, had to deploy an API management service. And why this is really important is this is how we're actually going to grab the code to make the connection. So you can see the URL here in the API management. This is the URL I'm actually going to paste into Twilio. The URL here is public. So we use this URL versus the hosted agent URL, which isn't public. That's just one note to make. So how do we actually make that connection? So if I go into Twilio and I go to my phone numbers, I'm going to just show you quickly how we actually are pointing the phone number to the webhook. So if I click into the phone number that I'm going to use, you can see here in the voice configuration, here's my webhook URL. This is the webhook URL from my API management gateway that you saw here. So it's the same URL, and that's how I'm kind of telling this phone number to point to this webhook endpoint. So that's how it works for voice. And then quickly, just to show you how this works for how we do the connection for SMS, then I'll actually get into calling the agent. If I go into my conversation configurations and I go into my airline build, you'll see my webhook endpoint for SMS. I've pasted here. So that's really how we're kind of building this connection. And so now I'm going to go back into Foundry. We'll see if any of our traces actually can show up. They take a minute. And I'm going to just give this a quick call. Actually, give me 1 sec. Let me see if I can get my phone actually showing up on the screen. Okay, while I do that, let me just give this a call, and I'm going to put it on speakerphone. Where is the actual speaker here? All right, we'll try this. All right, so I'm going to call the agent. Twilio will handle the speech in and out, and TAC will bridge into our Foundry agent framework, and Foundry will power the reasoning. This use case is just an airline use case. Imagine I have a flight. I'm calling in to make a change to my flight. Yes, I am. I need to change my seat. I'd like a window seat.
See, you are currently booked in 23B, an aisle seat. I can easily move you to 23A, a window seat, as it is available. Would you like me to do that?
Yes, please update the seat.
Done. I've updated your reservation for flight 543 to seat 23A. Have a great flight.
Thanks. All right, so you can see that agent. I hope you guys could hear that. You can see that agent was pretty fast. The traces take a few minutes to show up, so I'll try to refresh that in a second. But you can see it was pretty good. There wasn't any real delay. But what I really want to show you is the magic of how this architecture really shines. Where we have, now I've had that conversation on voice. Now I want to have a conversation on SMS and show you how the agent actually remembered the conversation that we had on voice. So give me 1 second. I'm going to try to get this, my phone mirroring. All right, if I do new movie recording, hopefully, no. Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay, so if I pull this over here, so here's my phone. Hopefully I don't get any crazy personal text at this time. Okay, so we just had that voice conversation. Now let's say for that reservation, I actually forgot I needed to add a bag to my reservation. So I'm going to text, hey, I forgot to add Bag to my reservation. Can I add one for my flight? All right, perfect. So it responded, it says, I see you're on flight 543. You're in seat 23A. I don't know if you guys remembered, but 2 seconds ago I just changed my seat to 23A, so it's able to know that it has that context right away. Adding one bag will cost you $45. Want me to add it? I'll say yes, please. And it should just say, great, safe travels, I've added your bag. So this kind of gives you the sense, and obviously a very simple example, but you can imagine this for many different use cases. But this example just kind of shows you like, hey, I had a conversation on voice, same exact phone number, talking on SMS, it knows who I am from my profile resolution, and so it's able to understand I had a conversation previously, this is what happened, and now I can have a more educated conversation going forward. So this is kind of what I wanted to show you guys today. All of this can be found, in this repo. So I'll just quickly. Actually, wait. Let me quickly see if we can. The traces are very slow, but let's take a look. So just invoking the agent, but do we actually get a? So we actually you can see the input and the agent response for the SMS conversation, and you can obviously see, all that metadata, how the actual, we're just using ChatGPT 4.5 mini here, so you can get all the traces, and this is cool. Like, we didn't have to do anything to build this. It's just kind of out of the box already with hosted agents. That was kind of everything I wanted to show you in the demo. Here's the repo. I'll quickly go back here and just pop this up, and I think I have 5 minutes if anybody has any questions. I don't even know if I can take questions, but. Your question's all the business logic in the GitHub? Yeah. So in the code, we have just like very generic examples. Like, you're a helpful agent, but we have, in the README, like, hey, if you want to change your personality prompt, here's how you would do it. If you want to connect to knowledge, here's how you can do it. If you want to add a tool, here's how you can do it. So we have examples of that within the GitHub repo of how you can actually enhance your agent. You can also do that through hosted agents as well within Foundry building. So we kind of give you that optionality. Like, for example, if you want to connect a knowledge source, you can do that to your agent here. You can change the model that you want. You can add data. You can actually add evals. So you can do that within our TAC repo. We have examples. You can also do that within Foundry hosted agents as well. Any other questions? Yeah. Can I move? Yeah.
And send everything through the OpenAI directly. Is that a better approach? Why?
Yeah. So the question is, they use Conversation Relay. It sounds like you go directly to OpenAI. You can. That's. Yeah. So that was kind of our. Originally, when we launched Conversation Relay, that was like our approach because we didn't have these like integrated deployment options. Because Microsoft has launched some WebSocket support and validation on Twilio signatures, now we have the ability for like this direct integration. We found that it makes the voice calls faster, and for customers who don't want to own the infrastructure of the WebSockets, it's like, hey, Microsoft will own that infrastructure for you. So you can absolutely build it on your own with cRelay and just own your own infrastructure and have that control. But we were hearing from a lot of customers like, I don't want to own that infrastructure, or I want a direct deployment option, or I want evals and observability, which you guys don't have. So this is just an option to say, hey, we actually have this deep integration. There's no extra money to use this integration. You're just paying for the channels and the Foundry services that you're using. So that's really the point of it. But you can absolutely, behind the scenes, that voice was cRelay. cRelay is just embedded within the Twilio Agent Connect repo, so it's still using the same product. It's just an SDK that shows you how to deploy it more easily and does that direct connection. So yeah, the way you're doing it now is totally fine.
That is like a call center with a lot of companies, and each company is a sub-account on Twilio.
Yep.
So if I use the Foundry to build this thing for this application, I will have to make a hosted agent
For each one. Yeah. That's a good question. So the way that we had with our Twilio Agent Connect before we had an integration with Foundry, I would say you'd want to have a different server for each company, and probably like if you have a different sub account. I don't actually know how it works in hosted agents and what they recommend. I'll ask kind of our partners at Microsoft, like for an ISV use case, do you want to have multiple different projects and resources, or can they be in one and you can still have like tenant stuff? It's a good question. So the question was about like basically an ISV use case. How would you provision your resources? So if you stop by, I can follow up and get your number. You're together. Okay. Yeah. Let's chat after. Yeah.
Azure communication service in between, or no? It's just like Azure communication. How the voice is being recognized, like
Yeah.
how you get the response back.
The response back, we're using Conversation Relay, which is a Twilio product connecting to the Voice Live API within Microsoft.
Oh, so not Azure communication.
I don't think so.
Or something.
No.
Oh, so that is
Yeah.
in the Twilio.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought Twilio is just for communicating with the numbers and fallback URL.
Yeah. So we've built some products on top of that so that it works more seamlessly, because we've just gotten a lot of feedback that the actual connection is difficult and the latency issues. So yeah, take a look at the repo. I think that it'll be interesting to test it out versus whatever you've built previously.
And what is that communication things called in the Twilio? It is Twilio
Conversation Relay?
conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Cool. I have 1 more minute. No, I don't. I don't have 1 more minute. Thank you guys.